Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, we're going to talk about recession. The reports from places like layoffs.fyi, which track in fact, I just saw one today that was pushed into it. So they track on a daily basis all of the companies that have announced layoffs. Layoffs.fyi reported since the beginning of the year, there's been over 340 tech companies that have laid off almost 102,000 employees worldwide since the beginning of 2023. Why? What happened? I mean, what's going on? Why all of a sudden all these layoffs? The first problem we had is that leading up from 5 years ago up until the end of November of 2022, the industry had been filling up all of their slots and expanding because of the thing that happened in 2019, but also because they were entering into new areas of business and needed additional employees to be able to do that. So they hired over 1.3 million people into these jobs, and primarily that went into what we refer to as the big tech sector. So at the same time, last year in March of 2022, because of the out of control inflation, the Federal Reserve began jacking up the interest rates in order to try to control the amount of money that was in the economy. And that caused a problem. And it caused a problem primarily for the big tech companies, which rely on low interest loans in order to keep their businesses moving. If you look at the number of servers that places like Meta adds in a day, and Google's cloud services add in a day, and Microsoft's cloud services, that money has to come from somewhere in order to purchase those systems until they get online and can start producing revenue. And so they rely on that, and as that money becomes more expensive, they can't do as much of it because they can't afford to pay the interest rate. So even though the tech companies are laying off, what the overall tech unemployment rate is dropping. Well, the reason is that the tech workers are quickly being absorbed into other tech companies. And why is that? What happened there? Well, so most of the new jobs that were sitting vacant are in the small to mid-sized business or company size class. And the reason why they're still open is because they just couldn't compete with the salaries that were being offered by the big tech companies. They still have them open, they still need to fill them, and here comes a ready supply of people that they can draw from that are experienced. It's a good thing for them. Maybe not such a good thing for you, because you're going to be working for a lot less money. One of the things we know for sure that Meta laid off over 11,000 people. This is not going to be the year for the metaverse. However, Meta will still be receiving heavy amounts of investment throughout 2023. So there may be jobs that are opening in that space anyway. Artificial intelligence is an important part of the industry. It hires an awful lot of people into it. However, I've heard a lot of people say that, AI is going to be the business to be in 2023. I would be really careful with that. And the reason why is what I'm reading is there's a lot of governmental regulation that's about to come and hammer those businesses. It might be good growth up until the regulations take effect, and then all of a sudden that dries up for a while until the companies can figure out how to meet the regulation. There are more immersive and augmented reality devices that are coming onto the market in 2023, and those are going to need software developers in order to develop new uses for those in the technology space. That was one of the key interests at CES. I have noticed that in the last month, there's been at least, since December, there's been at least 10 new devices that have entered the marketplace, and there's still more coming. And these are not the $6,000 augmented reality devices. These are in the $400, $500, and $800 range. What industry should you avoid? Big tech. I would avoid big tech for right now. The industry growth is going to be where it always is during a recession. So nobody likes to hear that recession word, but there are industries that have always proven to be resistant over time. I have seen a lot of recessions in my lifetime that have affected the tech industry that were recession resistant. And those are automotive and transportation. Why is now normally automotive would not be listed here, but the reason why it is because our automobiles are becoming high-tech command centers that require a lot of AI, a lot of computing power in order to be able to be self-driving. Transportation has always been a key component of it, and the reason for that, again, is during a recession, transportation attempts to try to shave more costs off the delivery of an item from point on its delivery cycle from when they load up, let's say it's a truck, on how they load the truck and what order they make their deliveries in order to do two things: shorten the distance that the truck has to drive and shorten the time that it takes to make their deliveries. The other one is defense and aerospace. Funny thing, those are always areas of expansion, and simply because the world that we live in is not a safe place. Finance and insurance. Why? Because during times of recession, people are looking to put their money in places where it is safe. It's going to be resistant to the forces of inflation. That is, it will gain value above the rate of inflation. And so finance and insurance companies, which insurance companies invest as well, so they're all interested in maximizing their returns, and that's where software really plays a heavy role. Healthcare, I'm obviously in that age group where it's booming because of us entering into that space. And so healthcare is definitely an area where tech focus is huge. There is more contracting that's going on from hospitals. There's very little permanent staff today. And so their schedules and their rotation and where they're drawing their staff from is very complex, more so than it was when I worked in the healthcare industry over 20 years ago now. The other one is manufacturing, which is kind of odd. You wouldn't think that manufacturing would be a big concern here, but oddly enough, it is. So manufacturing relies on safety. They want to have enough inventory to continue the flow of work through their facility because they don't want to have to shut down. To shut down a line is very expensive because not only are the costs to shut it down expensive, the cost to restart it is expensive. They would prefer to just keep it going, and because of the just-in-time inventory systems we have, when you have constraints in the economy and companies aren't producing as much, particularly during the thing where supply chain got completely out of whack, then those companies had to start doing what is called strategic inventory. Or buffering in order to prevent those manufacturing lines from shutting down. Or what should you do in order to prepare yourself for the type of skills that a new job might be looking for in this economy? Well, some of the key areas that are always going to be key areas during a recession: automation. Automation, both in the business processes and in the IT sector, are always going to be key because that's the thing that the businesses are trying to do during an inflation is cut back their operational expenses. So they're going to be looking at everything to be able to trim operational expenses because those are the things that affect their bottom line that they can do something about. They'll be looking at all aspects of the software delivery process if you manufacture software, whether that's for internally or for delivery to end customers. They're going to be wanting to automate more of the CI/CD process, and I mean all the way back to planning and delivery of whatever that component is. Decentralization, you'll find, again, operational costs are going to get shed. They're probably going to be wanting to look at things like, well, I might have some processes that I'm paying for that are out in a third party. Maybe they're in a cloud or an edge or something that I might want to bring back in-house. And you'll find that they'll decentralize rather than push them back into a data center environment. They may decentralize those to the operational areas of the company in order to place those servers within the realm of the user departments in order to cut costs so that they don't have to maintain them. There'll be internal software development will be preferred over paying annual subscription licenses to software. You'll find they will quickly curtail those in order to keep going, and they will substitute in things that they design and that they can control, and they have the costs internally. They've already got you. You're bought and paid for at least a year, so you're a fixed cost. They might as well try to get as much out of you as possible if you're a software developer. And so you'll find that they'll do more software internal development than they will purchase packages on the outside. Security that I see is definitely attractive. Look, I see a lot of ads for these. This is people looking for people familiar with trustless computing environments. And so there seems to be a lot of emphasis on that right now, at least in this particular point in the calendar. What about as far as you, what should you concentrate on your areas that you should be learning? The first one is intelligent composable applications. And the second one is building and delivering software at scale. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that to explain what the heck do you even mean by that? I don't even understand what you said. The spectrum for intelligent composable applications, that's a balance. And it's a balance between creating data integrity. So let's say on this side, I have data integrity and I have lower architectural complexity. That means I have less pieces in my architecture. On this side, I have all of that. I have data integrity and lower architectural complexity. Well, that's great, but that means I have larger applications, right? Over on this side, I have greater development agility, I have increased development flexibility, and I have precision scaling because I have smaller pieces and I know how each one of those are going to perform instead of having to fill up the hardware. I can match the hardware to what I actually need. So maybe I don't need 96 cores. Maybe I only need 30, or maybe I only need 60. As long as the box is capable of expanding, businesses are more likely to go with the smaller core counts than they will the large in these times because it's lower. The costs are lower for the software, the costs are lower for the hardware. So you'll find that that's another place where they will trim. There's also this, because of that intelligent composable application, the other aspect you have of it is, again, on the side where I have greater data integrity and lower architectural complexity, I'll have more monolithic applications. That is a tendency to build everything into one big monster release. And then on the other side where I have greater development agility and increased deployment flexibility, I'll have smaller components, maybe microservices, maybe mini services. And then somewhere in between, I'll have a mix of maybe macro or mini services there as a transition. So it kind of spans this whole line. I hope that made sense. If you want me to explain that to you further, in another video, I'd be happy to do that. But for today, just think of it as big, huge applications being architecturally less complex, but bigger to push around. And then you have all these smaller components which make up a more finer grained delivery, so I can deliver different pieces of it at different times. Just think of it that way. The other one is optimized intelligent decision making. We used to formalize this around the word model. you're going to find that in recessionary times, companies are going to spend more time modeling and trying things out on paper or on simulators before they actually commit to purchasing something, because when the cash flow is small, you can't afford to make mistakes. People lose their jobs. Not only does your manager lose his or her job, but also you have developers and operational staff and support which may lose their jobs too because of a mistake that was made up the line, or the company could suffer and close their doors. So you'll find that they'll spend more time trying to figure out what's the critical thing to do in order to maintain their profitability levels. And so they want to make sure that when they're doing planning for new product releases, like I said, that they reach the right optimization of when to release it. They'll also look at, if I'm in manufacturing, that I have critical supply chain components available, so that line doesn't shut down that's trying to manufacture something. The other one is I may be planning for new infrastructure, and the model will be what's the best way to migrate it from a development platform, test platform, to production without impacting my existing systems. How do I hand that off in the most efficient way? And then how do I make sure that it's going to scale up? The other reason why scaling becomes so important in these particular environments is that you'll find that in recession times, there's a lot more merger and acquisitions that take place because companies can't afford to operate their businesses alone, so they will entertain mergers and acquisitions in order to consolidate operations, cut costs, while expanding their user base and their profitability. And you'll find that's definitely something that will happen during this time frame. So these types of decision-making processes are very important to determine the best way to merge in two totally unrelated architectures. A lot of times in IT, they may use completely different packages. They may have to have translators or application programming interfaces written. They may need something in the middle that allows the free flow of information between the two so that both systems know what's going on. Or they may need to borrow the supply chain from one because it's better, and versus the purchasing from another. So yeah, it gets pretty complicated. We used to refer to it as mergers and acquisitions to IT is like a head-on collision between two trains at 90 miles an hour, because they always expected to just turn it on and work, and it never does. Now, without planning, you got to spend the time to plan it. I guess the last question that you might have on your mind is, what do you expect to be paid for all this? Are you going to lose money? If I was working for a big tech company and I'm all of a sudden out on the street, well, am I going to be making the same amount, or am I going to be making a little less? Well, I mean, the reason why those small and medium-sized companies had openings was they couldn't afford to pay the salary that maybe you were being paid when you were at the big tech company. So yeah, you're going to expect maybe a 3 to 5% in less that you may take for your. I personally have gone through that cycle several times, but if you just hold, maybe it's a little bit less to go forward, but look at it this way: something coming in is better than nothing coming in. So yeah, look at it that way. Look at it also from the long term. Small and medium-sized companies are usually family-oriented. They have strong loyalties to their employees, and they'll usually do right by you over time if you just give them a chance. Your chances for advancement in a small to medium company are much greater than they're going to be at a large company. It's always the question of, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? I mean, that's generally what happens. Take the long view, because a lot of times it works out better for you in the long view. I can tell you personally that is what's happened for me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If there's something I mentioned that you want me to explain more, leave me a comment below. And of course, if there any other comments that you have are always welcome as well. Hope to see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again real soon. And bye for now.